MTG Lore with Eggs. Hi, and welcome to the second episode of MTG Lore with Eggs, where we look at some of Magic's oldest and newest stories and tell them with eggs. Today, we're going back to the year of 2012, and we're returning to Ravnica with the Return to Ravnica block for one of Ravnica's oldest side stories. Without further ado, let's hop right into a story about murder and vengeance, told with eggs. Chapter 1. The Wolf Rider Gets a Mission. Our story takes place on the plain of Ravnica, the city of guilds, an entire world city built of buildings and alleyways, sewers and spires, split between 10 ruling factions, and the uneasy balance of power between them that maintains a level of peace, but provides a steady source of tension. To witness an event that may one day tip that balance of power and descend the city into chaos. We meet Ruzi, a member of the Selesnya Guild, who trains young members to ride giant wolves. Here he is now, teaching a group of baby riders and wolves how not to fall down. He shows off a bit with his own wolf, Kuma, just to make his point. He's definitely more practical than a lot of the Selesnyan higher-ups, preferring his bow and arrow and actually doing stuff to the prayers and doctrines of the World Soul, the central belief of the Selesnyan Guild, which makes him rather unpopular with the Dryad leaders. One of these Dryads has been fuming in the corner, having been ignored for this whole training session, Mazena. After the two of them have a bit of a back and forth over doctrine, with Ruzi again preferring tangible stuff and Mazena thoughts and prayers, the Dryad tells him that Tristani herself, or themselves, itself? It's complicated. It's a whole 3-in-1 thing. Anyhow, Tristani wants him to head out to the Rubble Belt after sensing a disturbance in the Force. World Soul, a wrecked part of the city that is largely Gruul territory, a faction who prefer the wildness of nature over the manicured Selesnya gardens. Kinda hard to find nature in a plain that's an entire city. Ruzi argues a bit more with the Dryad, but it's clear why he's being asked specifically. His younger sister Cecily moved there a while back to create a healing center and Selesnya outpost. Him and Cecily used to be very close before she became more zealous, and they haven't talked since she moved. So, despite his reservations, Ruzi and Kuma head out to the Rubble Belt, hoping to find out just what's happened. Chapter 2. Nice Girls Finish Dead Last. This chapter is told from the perspective of Cecily, Ruzi's sister, telling us how the events of her life have led us to the present day. See, Cecily wasn't much of a talker when she was a child, as in, she didn't really talk at all. Her brother Ruzi kept an eye out for her and still insisted to everyone that she could talk, and one day that she would. And then one day, she did. Tristani had just finished a whole sermon when Cecily was moved by the Holy Spirit, the World Soul. Hallelujah. Standing up and launching into some serious praise. Her brother was thoroughly weirded out. The Dryads thought she was blessed, but she felt the World Soul move through her, and she would follow wherever it led her. That's why she ended up moving to the Rubble Belt, to spread Selesnya teachings, offer healing for free, and follow a call for unity and harmony. Her brother warned her, though, the Gruul could be dangerous, but she insisted that she needed to give peace a chance. And for a little bit, things seemed to be working out all right. The commune was growing. People were showing up for free healing and listening to what she had to say, and she was saying her prayers every night to the World Soul, and wishing her brother were there too. But then the outside world started to press in, and the friction of the guilds started to hamper her progress. An Azorius arrestor was putting up tickets on the gates. And Izzet Mage started shouting at them about arcane energy and portals and other nonsense and telling them they had to leave. And then came the Gruul child. Cecily found a baby left abandoned in the rubble with a Gruul tattoo on him, took him home and adopted him as her own son. She even named him after her brother, Z. Well, Z is short for Ruzi. It turns out the Gruul did that on purpose, because kids gotta toughen up before they can walk, and they got real pissed off when Cecily refused to give the baby back, thinking their ways to be overly cruel. Slowly, with each new rising threat, Cecily's dream of building gardens was replaced with the reality of building taller and taller walls. In the end, though, it wasn't the Gruul who attacked them, but the Rakdos, a guild whose focus on hedonistic and often murderous pleasure take precedence over all things. And those tall walls they had built had them trapped. The woman who was leading the attack was none other than the contract killer Massacre Girl, another fine addition in the now classic trope of crazy women who dress up like clowns and/or creepy dolls, who seemed quite pleased to have her and her thrill killers make quick work of the defenseless Selesnians while she taunted Cecily. In the face of such mindless violence, Cecily could do nothing but kneel silently, even as Massacre Girl took her life. Singing in the shower, really like being alive. Hope I don't get murdered. La 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 la, la 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 la. Gasp! Oh, 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 ah, I'm being murdered! Stop stabbing me! I'm dying! Oh, Jeez, that's a pretty dark ending. Let's keep going. Chapter 3, Ready to Tear the System Down. Ruzi and Kuma arrive in the aftermath of the previous chapter's murderizing, confronting Massacre Girl and her goons, but finding themselves severely outnumbered and overwhelmed at finding his sister murdered. He demands that Massacre Girl tell him who hired her for this job.
Why? Why would you do this?
But she is completely unbothered. She did her job and had her fun, so she dips, leaving an ogre to finish off Ruzi. Turns out, one big ogre guy isn't really a match for a giant wolf and the hero riding it. And once they finish their quick battle, Ruzi takes time to start burying the dead, trying to ignore the reality in front of him, and to start planning the revenge he'd enact on Massacre Girl. The Selesnya would never go for revenge, so Ruzi would have to act on his own, even if it meant burning the whole city down to do it. Only then does he let himself grieve. It's then that he hears a surprising sound, a baby crying. The Rakdos somehow missed the Gruul baby in their murderous hijinks, and Ruzi knew that he could use this to his advantage. Ruzi goes to visit the Gruul, where he meets with Nikia of the Old Ways, one of the Gruul tribe leaders. A lot of Magic players are familiar with the card Nikia of the Old Ways, but funnily enough, there isn't anything in these earliest stories to indicate her being a centaur. In a spin-off story that kind of follows this one, but doesn't involve Ruzi or Kuma, which is why we're not covering it, she's described as dismounting a beast she'd been riding and sitting cross-legged. The story was taken over by a different writer, so it's possible it was just a slip-up, or perhaps it was a retcon later on. But it's a funny thing to notice. After a bit of rehashing the same disagreement Nikia had with Cecily's choice to take the baby, Ruzi tells them that they were all killed, including the child that they had wanted back, and telling them it was Massacre Girl what did it. And other than the child not being dead, what he said was true. Enraged, Nikia puts out a blood crime on the Rakdos, swearing that the Gruul would seek vengeance for the innocent dead before Ruzi leaves, making sure he wasn't followed. Ruzi, his wolf Kuma, and the child Z vanish into the night, swearing to set the guilds against each other, to tear the system and the city down, to have his vengeance. Post-story edition. Despite the previous chapter being the end of the story, as far as Ruzi and Kuma are concerned, we did get more info with the Azorius Top 10 Most Wanted list, where he made number 9. Apparently, he'd broken into an Azorius record hall, stealing files related to the Rakdos and setting the building on fire before making a break for it. Massacre Girl, funnily enough, is number 1 on that same list, outranking a certain Gorgon assassin who's more urban legend than person at this point. We have an innocent unjustly murdered, the killer hired by an unknown agent, and a brother out for revenge, willing to set the city's power structure against itself in order to achieve his goals. And where does all this evidence point to? Well, I believe that this is irrefutable proof that Ruzi and Kuma will end up being a key player in the upcoming Murders at Karlov Manor set. Wait, what's that? The set's already out? They're not mentioned at all again in the story? And even though Massacre Girl is being framed for one of the murders, which is exactly the sort of revenge Ruzi would push for, and you can barely find this story on the Magic the Gathering website? Okay. Well, who knows? They might still make a return in the future if they survive the whole undead army invasion of War of the Spark, or the massively destructive and corrupting Phyrexian invasion, or just being retconned out of existence. I mean, they did bring Feather back out of nowhere, so hey, it's always a possibility. And that's that for this week's story. This story was actually quite impactful for me, as it was one of the first bits of Magic the Gathering lore I ever read, back when I started playing in college. I knew that this was one that I really wanted to tell, even though it's older, and yes, it might not still be relevant to current Magic story, but I think it's still a fun one, and I think it's important to keep sharing some of these older tales as well. Because for some of us, that's what helped make Magic such a fun and engaging influence on our lives. If you haven't yet considered, please go ahead and push that subscribe button and leave a comment down below about some of your favorite Magic stories. But that's all for now. Catch you on the sunny side.